Anyone convicted in Superior Court in Georgia is going to want to know, what are my chances of winning on appeal in either the Georgia Court of Appeals or the Georgia Supreme Court? And that's a tough question to answer for a couple of reasons, and it comes down to the Georgia Court of Appeals. The Georgia Court of Appeals issues a lot of unpublished opinions, and these are opinions that are difficult to find. You can't really find them on Westlaw or Lexis very well, and they're just not well documented. So it's difficult to break down percentages of win rates because of these unpublished opinions. The other problem is the Georgia Court of Appeals doesn't publish its statistics anywhere on its website or to the public, but we do have a few tools at our disposal to get a sense of what the win rates might be in the Georgia Court of Appeals and Supreme Court. There's an organization called the Court Statistics Project, or CSP, and CSP gives a rough breakdown by state based on win rates and loss rates in the Court of Appeals or the state Supreme Court. CSP gathered data from the Georgia Court of Appeals and the Georgia Supreme Court for the year 2021. Now, before we look at those results, we should have a couple of caveats here. One, of course, 2021 was very much a pandemic year, and so the results that we see from 2021, we can't necessarily extrapolate to other years. Second of all, we just talked about the Georgia Court of Appeals unpublished opinions, and it's unclear if CSP took these unpublished opinions into account when rendering its results. But for 2021, CSP found that the Georgia Court of Appeals and the Georgia Supreme Court reversed in 61 cases, but affirmed in about 603 cases. And that gives us a total win rate in the appellate courts of about 10%. The Georgia Supreme Court, of course, is much more transparent in the opinions that it issues. And if we look at cases where the Georgia Supreme Court granted certiorari or granted cert, meaning they reviewed the Court of Appeals opinions, we see that that percentage rate, that win rate, goes up quite significantly. Between 2017 and 2020, the Georgia Supreme Court reviewed about 174 different cases from the Court of Appeals. That's where they granted cert and agreed to hear the case. Of those 174 cases, the Supreme Court of Georgia reversed in 65 cases. That gives you a win rate of about 37% if you can convince the Supreme Court of Georgia to hear your case. Over the years, the Department of Justice has also collected data on state courts, including Georgia's appellate courts. In a 2010 study, the DOJ looked at issues most likely to get a reversal on appeal in the state courts. The number one issue regarded aggravating or mitigating factors that could make a sentence more severe. The second issue most likely to get a reversal regarded sentencing issues, and the third regarded guilty plea issues. Now, if you put to the side sentencing issues and guilty plea issues, we see that coming in at number one is suppression at 10%. Jury instructions comes in at number two at 8.5%. Sufficiency of the evidence is number three at 8.1%. Prosecutor misconduct is at 5.4%. Character testimony is at 4.1%. Ineffective assistance of counsel is at 3.6%. And relevancy issues are at 2.9%. And while all of these statistics are rather interesting, it's important to know that every case is different and every case may have different issues. What you can do to increase your odds of winning on appeal is to hire an experienced Georgia criminal appeal lawyer to take a hard look at your case and to argue your appeal in the Georgia Court of Appeals or the Georgia Supreme Court.